even a $50,000 job from a social media post, you can't even calculate like the return on that. It's thousands of percent, right? Just like, even if you made 5 grand on like one thing, you're like, dude, that's
It was
now
worth it.
you have social for a few months. You know what I mean? You could
Yeah.
pay someone else to do something.
You've got a crazy story. Let's start in the beginning. Let's just jump right into it. Your dad passed away when you were like, what, 9 or 10 years old? And that's
Yeah,
kind of been like a
exactly.
really big catalyst for you in your entire life. Let's start there.
Damn,
Drop
dude,
right in the middle of it, dude.
you've done some research, bro. That's awesome. Honestly, it's the craziest thing because if someone's like if I could reverse that, like where I'm at now, like I wouldn't do it. Like obviously I love my dad dearly and all that stuff. I'm gonna have him tattooed on my neck, right? But
Yeah.
but the thing is, man, as like a fucking 10-year-old kid, like the biggest pillar of strength, like my like hero. Well, let me back up. When I was 5, he got into an accident. He broke his neck and he was paralyzed from the neck down. So already just like trauma at such an early age, and I didn't understand it when I was that
Yeah.
young. And my dad really held a lot of that in, right? Because he wanted to come off strong, and he still did. And he coached my football teams from a wheelchair and all that stuff. And then as I got older, I'm like, damn, dude, like this is pretty crazy. Like we deal with a lot of these complications, right? So then 5 years later, when I'm 10, is when he dies. It was a sudden thing. He basically just woke up not breathing. It was like complications from being paralyzed.
Jeez.
He had pneumonia real bad, and it filled his lungs, and basically, he went into a coma. And again, I was too young to really understand what was going on. But I remember the day, like, I was at school, my dad was in the hospital, like, I just knew the news was coming, and my mom, like, is walking up to come get me, and I see her through the school door, and I'm like, fuck, this is it. Like, my dad is dead. And this is the worst nightmare. Like, like losing
Yeah.
a parent, and, a special bond with a father and son. I'm like, this is like basically
Yeah.
worst case scenario. And then I'm just like, whoa, like, there's not like a pit that opened up in the ground and I was like
Sure.
sucked into hell. Like the whole world didn't crumble away. I was like, damn, like this
I'm alive.
sucks, but like
Yeah.
I'm here,
Yeah.
like I can keep going. Yeah. And honestly, the craziest thing, really from that moment on, I was not afraid to fail because I'm like, I've seen what like the worst failure is. Like, you think I'm going to be afraid to like, stand up and ask a question or put myself out there or
Yeah.
start a business and
Yeah.
like what, like lose money? You're not talking about like losing a life or losing your support, right? So like in the craziest way, it was extremely freeing for me.
Isn't that crazy how much fear can hold you back? Even as you're saying that, I'm like, man, I've got fears multiple levels way above that I know are holding me back. Like things that like, what if I look stupid?
Yeah.
Like, gosh, compared to like all the way down there, and you
Dude.
still survived. It's like, so what? You look stupid. Are you still going to breathe after that? Is your heart still beating? Okay, cool. You're good.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yes. And then here's the other side of that coin. It's like, none of us are important
Yeah.
enough for anyone to give a shit. Who are you looking stupid to, and for how
Yeah.
long, and how does that really impact you? And then it's like, are you like a huge douchebag that is like pretending to be something you're not and taking advantage of people? That is shameful. Are you an honest dude that's just putting your real self out there, who's human and makes mistakes? Yeah. Then fuck it. Move on. You're going to put out so much content, it's going to get buried. Like, who gives a shit? Don't be a huge racist piece of shit. And like, that's a very low bar of like, fucking up, right? So
I work with a lot of builders, and specifically, I really push social media, like getting active on social and the digital ads. Digital ads are really easy. It's like, hey, do you have 30, 40, $50 a day you can throw into ads? But the social media is really hard for people. It's because of the fear. It's because of putting stuff out there, being on camera, talking to the camera. What if I look stupid? All of that. They don't realize how much more money they could be, like the revenue increase that could just come from them overcoming that fear alone, like you have done, like you've shown by example. It's just mind blowing to me, dude. What an amazing start to your a really crappy and really sad start, but what an amazing way to come out of that in a positive way. There's a lot of people who probably go through the same situation. It wouldn't come out in the same way. They would maybe let that maybe hold them back and feel like the world's against me. I've got all these reasons not to, keep going. I feel like you handle that differently. Like what is it about you that said like, I'm going to use this and say, hey, I overcame fear. I'm going to move forward, rather than like, I'm a victim now.
It's a very interesting question, because even like my own family members have reacted differently to it. Like some have like, they're like, oh my God, I've seen the worst. Like now they have such bad anxiety because they're like, what if that happens again? Or like, and I will say, there is a lot of like, I was born with a lot of, I was like very energetic. I was always just like super high ADD, like moving on to the next thing. So I feel like some of those qualities help me not like ruminate on shit. Like I'm always like looking for a solution rather than thinking about like how fucked up this failure was. But I think also my dad was a huge factor in that. Like he would whisper in my ear, like always, he would tell me I was a born champion. He would like, just like, I remember there was like high schoolers playing football, and I love football. I played in college, so I was always into it. And I was like, I want to get out on that field. And he's like, all right, if you can run through this chain link fence, I had my pads on. He's like, you can get there. And I tried like 40 times, and he's just laughing the whole time. And just, so I think it was more of just, like having that positive reinforcement when I was younger, but then also just being the type of person that like, I don't have time to dwell on that shit. There's a difference between reflecting and making an adjustment, like, which is great. That's literally how you learn. It's like, and then when you finally realize that like, not only is failure going to happen, but it's actually a necessary part of moving forward. Like, you're like, oh my God, like all I have to do is like keep failing and just like keep limping forward, and I'm gonna fucking end up somewhere. And then like, like it's more of just like that shift of a mentality of like, instead of like trying to never fail, what you need to focus on is just like not giving up. Because you don't fail. Okay, for instance, on a sale of a home, I don't like fail. I don't lose money until I finally sell it. It's like if I need to hold on to it for a little more, or if I need to keep pushing to get my like desired outcome, that's what I need to keep doing. Basically, yeah, it's more of just like, it's so funny because I've had people tell me this too. They're like, well, man, like you're just cut from a different cloth. I'm like, bro, I'm not. Like anyone can just start implementing this small tweak, this small shift to like fail forward, That's like the most freeing thing. If you don't know how to do something, go out and fuck it up an infinite number of times until you understand how to do it, and you're fucking it up less. Like, what a fucking easy path to move forward,
What's funny? So I was at a conference one time, and there's a famous author, Erwin McManus, and he's like this really creative guy out of LA. And I ran into him after the conference, like at a coffee shop or something. And I was like, dude, I want to be a wedding photographer. I was like, give me some advice, because I was in college, I needed money. You can make a ton of money as a wedding photographer. I was like, give me some advice. And he's like, purposely go fail. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, I want you to purposely go out and overexpose or underexpose every one of your photos. I was like, that's the stupidest advice I ever heard. Like I was hoping for like some golden nugget. And I was like, okay, thanks, man. And I sat at home, and I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to follow it. He's a lot more successful than I am, so I'm just going to go try it. So I went and overexposed a bunch of photos, like the next, few photo shoots, not like weddings, but just like fun stuff, like for friends. And I realized, like, when you overexpose a photo, like, so I went out there and failed on purpose. When you overexpose a photo, though, it has like this different kind of like soft glow to it. And I'm like, well, that's kind of cool. And so I like started like Googling this, and I like discovered this whole separate niche of like people that did like film photography with like medium format cameras, and they purposely overexpose their photos, and it gives it like this even more beautiful soft glow that like was like a really fine art, like high ticket dollar thing that you could sell. So I'm like, oh, dude, this is incredible. So I like adapted it. I went and bought a film camera. I like overexposed every photo from then on, and I could do like weddings for like $10,000 each. I would have never discovered that if I didn't like purposely go out there and fail. So stories like that, man, it's crazy, but it's uncomfortable though. It's especially uncomfortable if you have to fail in public. I think that's the scary part.
That's what
it's like when you're failing in front of people.
But what's fucked up is our own insecurities is what we're really the most scared of. We think it's other people, but other people are so much more forgiving. Like,
Yeah.
and online and stuff, there might be some trolls, right? But it's like when you watch someone fuck up in public, you're like, oh, this makes me feel uncomfortable. Like, damn, don't you like feel for that guy? You know, it's like,
yeah.
if he's not, again, if he's not a fucking bastard, like if you see someone that like deserves it and is like an evil person that's done wrong by people, but like if you see an honest person trying their best and it's like whatever, a few like 30 seconds of some cringe, that's gonna like derail your life. Like, dude, get over it, you know?
Yeah.
And
You
again,
can bounce back.
Yeah, and if you look at like my very early videos, they're entirely different than they are now. And honestly, I'm still learning. I'm still getting better. But all I know is like I'm having fun.
So you've got a huge story, and I want to jump into the business side of things because I feel like there's so much here. So I did a lot of research. You did your football. You were doing law school for a while, right? But you didn't take the bar, right? You got up to the last second. Maybe just give like a 30-second recap of like football, college, law school, and then stop right there.
All right, so my whole life, I thought I was going to be a pro athlete, right? Like for pretty much my whole life. I had always excelled. I was like varsity all 4 years of high school, varsity all 4 years at Rice. And basically, I saw some really, really good players that were like amazing, like barely squeeze into the NFL. And I was like, dude, I'm kind of burnt out. Like, I need to like kind of think about my life after this. So my dad, when he got into his accident, it was his last year in law school. So I was almost following in his footsteps. I was like, oh man, like I'll be a lawyer. I had these big dreams of being in the courtroom and stuff. Loved law school, met incredible people. But right when I started law school, one of my teammates at Rice, we partnered up and we started a real estate investment company in Houston. Buying distressed properties, rehabbing them, renting them out, a lot of them on Section 8. And basically, that's where I like fell in love with the process of contracting. I played the like contractor role, not knowing what the fuck I was doing. But we were buying houses for $35,000 each in like 2012. After we did like 10 homes, I kind of felt a little more comfortable. I started working for some clients, like doing flips for some investors, and then I remodeled my own personal home. That's where I was like, holy shit, this is incredible. Like, I GC'd the whole thing myself. It came out incredible. It's a really well-performing short-term rental for me now. But then I linked up with, crazy enough, Gary Keller of Keller Williams and his protege, Tim Heil. And so I got to be mentored by Gary Keller, and he is the biggest proponent. You know, his book, The One Thing, was like my biggest, like, I was like, oh my God, like, I've been kind of living like this. I can't believe someone's preaching this. I always thought if you're like, you know, letting the bullshit tasks fall aside and focus on like the meat, that you're being lazy or something. I'm like, dude, I'm cutting corners, but I'm getting to the fucking finish line. So his thing was fail forward. Ultimately, I thought that was my big break. We moved to Austin. I uprooted my wife, our 6-month-old. We bought a house here in Austin that was like double the price of my Houston house. I was like, this is my big break. We're going to take over the world. And basically, within a year, they were looking at Keller Williams national data. The Austin market hit a plateau in like 17. They thought everything was going to crash, and we're like, we're selling everything. And then basically, I was out of a job. So all these people, I'd been posting on social, like some of the work that we were doing. And I was proud of it. All of these people along the way were like, hey, come remodel my kitchen, my bath. I'm like, no, I'm not set up for that. We're doing these big development projects. So basically, I just went back to every single one of those people, hit them up. And like my first project in Austin for a client was like a master bath for like $5,000, which is like, our master baths start at like 100 to 120 now. So it's like, it's just crazy how you know, I was like, I'm in Austin. I'm not accepting this. I moved here. I'm going to start a new company, and I'm going to just focus on this because I fucking love it, and I'm really good at it. You know?
Did you have like any savings or anything?
Well, I had my house in Houston that was being rented out. We had about 20 rental properties. So I had some income. not enough to like fully live off of alone. But
Yeah.
you know, I paid myself. I think like I was getting paid for like the big break. My salary was like 75K with some equity in the company, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna at least continue paying myself the 75K. And
Okay.
there was times where I was up against the wall. It was like where my wife is up late with me in bed and she's crying and she's like, "Are we even like in the right industry? Like, should you go back to being a lawyer? Should we move back to Houston?" And I'm just telling her like, Melissa, like this is it. I just know that it's it, right?
Yeah.
And what's crazy is miraculously I never missed. I never missed paying myself. I kept it up. We tightened our fucking budget down like crazy and made it happen. And then it just that snowball started rolling, you know?
Yeah. So that's when you founded your company now, Revent, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so that was how many years ago was that when you were like just
that
starting
was like
out?
basically 2017.
Okay. How long did it take? Yeah. How long did it take you to like really get off the ground? We were like,
Yeah, I mean,
I've got something here. And you're like, your wife is like, okay, you made the right choice.
yeah, right. So like in the beginning, it was only me. I was doing literally everything. So I'm dealing with like bookkeeping, estimates, client meetings. I'm doing construction management, you know, all of like the interactions with subcontractors, like everything. But let me back up. What is actually amazing about the experience with Gary Keller was my very first project in Austin was a commercial quadplex. So there was 4 different permits. There was all these crazy fire ratings, and it had to be commercial sprinkler systems. It was absolutely absurd. I learned the Austin code inside and out, and my plumber, my welder, my HVAC, my electrician, and my framers are still with me today, right? So I had this group of people that like, I just was like, dude, I'm going to dive in. I fucking love these guys. I went to their kids' birthdays. Like I got to know them and we were really a team all together, right? So I felt really confident with that. So I would honestly say it was about like 2 years of like grinding, like robbing Peter to pay Paul. Like we're starting a job, taking some of that money to like keep going. Yeah. And my other thing was, I said, no matter what, if I lose money, I'm going to deliver 100% on every promise I've ever had to a client. And to this day, we don't even have one bad review about our performance. I've never not been paid. Yeah. Like, so I was like committed to doing things at a high level. And at the beginning, my only edge was really price, right? I mean, like I had all the drive, I had good guys, and there was just people that came to me in desperate situations where they got fucked over by a contractor. That was like my first big break. And it was like a whole house for like 250 grand. And I was like, this is incredible, you know? And for reference, that job would be like over $1 million for us today, right? So I'm doing it at a quarter of the market rate. Sure. And we crushed it. And then we won an award in Austin. Then that spurred more jobs. And then before we knew it, we had a 500K job. And then I joined some development groups and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to provide value. I'm like, I will go to every city meeting with y'all and I will just be a stenographer. Then people just saw that I gave a fuck. I met an amazing architect who's a personal friend of mine. She gave me my first project, massive addition, over $1 million. It came out so phenomenal. And it just spurred all these other projects. You know, now we're in, you know, our biggest projects run, you know, even up to about 5 million, right? So
crazy.
Yeah. And you know, then we start doing these like kitchens for like 200K that we're winning #1 in the whole nation for. And what's crazy is the same mentality, the same drive when I didn't know shit and I just started and I said, you know what? I'm just going to fucking deliver. Yeah. You know, and I'm going to be creative and I'm going to make this shit work. It's this, all of that just compounds, man. It's just not that complicated.
So you've had a lot of really big breaks from the quality of work that you've done. I think like the awards that you're getting, just like meeting the right people, all of that has just played into this giant snowball, like you're saying, included like the social media, all the content you're putting out there. You've created this giant machine and it's just pumping out. let's go back to let's sit down, like act like we're talking to a guy that's doing $3 million a year. Maybe does like, I don't know, 5 homes a year, one home at a time. Doesn't know anything about social media, maybe has an Instagram, but he's not posting, and he's all doing it by himself. And he's not in Austin, where there's like a lot of just visibility and a lot of chance for awards and all that kind of stuff. He's out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. What does he do? What's his marketing plan? What's his marketing strategy?
Well, the first thing he does is just pull out his phone. Dude, I will tell you this. I have an in-house videographer, and we do our own production now, which sounds insane to say, but like,
yeah, that's smart.
All I did, my friends would even tease me. I'd hold my phone like this, and I would point shit out with my hand, and I would just tell them, "Here's what we're thinking. Look at this. Like, we open up this wall, and look at how fucked up this is, and we have to make it into, something better, right?" And like, people were just like super interested in just getting a view into a world that they might have been interested but have no fucking idea how it works. Yeah. And here's the other thing. Look on YouTube. There's people that mow lawns that have 1 million subscribers that set up a camera and they mow a lawn or they power wash. It's like people don't realize that what you're doing is interesting in some way. Yeah. Put up a camera and do a time-lapse video of a demo. If you're a flooring guy, do a time-lapse video of this massive area. Like, it's oddly satisfying. There's just, everyone thinks they need to be like doing blockbuster shit and be like Brad Pitt for someone to give a fuck about what they're doing. It's just not true. You know?
Yeah.
And the other thing, here's the other thing.
Yeah. Keep going.
Every single relationship you have, you need to leave a positive impression on that person, because I had a massive, what really helped me is, I was homecoming king. I was all that bullshit because I was fucking nice to everyone. Everyone knew my name. In a high school of 5,000 people, I started off with 5,000 followers, basically, to where like everyone was like, dude, I want to see that guy do good. And my own family and my own network were the only people that were watching my stuff in the beginning. And just from that, I have best friends telling friends, like, look at my boy John, And that's how it started. And the most beautiful thing now is like reaching a complete stranger and them giving a fuck, Like, that is just the coolest thing to me,
Yeah. It's so funny. So I started working with a client, and we actually had a call yesterday, and he's like starting to post more. And it's like real basic stuff, but in the beginning, it's like all about just like quantity, right? It's like, don't even like worry about like the quality of like what you're putting out there. Yeah. So like, he's just like, he's trying, it's like, he doesn't know what he's doing, but he's like just trying to put stuff out there. And he's like, it's kind of cool. Like, my aunt just started following me like on Instagram. She even like knew what I did. And he's like, that's just so cool. I'm like, that's what it is, man. Like, it's going to start to happen like way more and more, and it's going to go outside your circle. And all of a sudden, one day you're going to land a client from it. You're going to get $1 million house from your Instagram. And that's the craziest part, like when you think about that. So that's like the ultimate goal for them is like to get more homes. You've got a crazier story than that. You've actually had networks reach out to you because of the content that you're putting out there. Talk about that.
Okay, so, and let me talk about my videographer. I met this dude, again, just how you reached out to me, and I was like, hey, dude, this sounds fun. Let's do it. Yeah. When I see an opportunity, I look into it. I don't write it off. None of this is like not worth our time. I literally saw a post on Austin Jobs subreddit from a videographer that said like, hey, I'm new to Austin. Are there any other filmmakers or videographers like down to collab? I just want to put out some cool stuff. And I'm like, So then I hit this dude up and I'm like, I've been filming all my own stuff. It's like a full-time job. And I'm like, hey, I've actually been looking for someone to kind of just follow me around. Like, he had a few like little videos like for his portfolio on there. I was like, damn, like this guy's pretty talented. So dude, I dove in, I meet with this guy. He films that, we do a full walkthrough of that, my first $1 million job. This was in like 19 when we met. Actually I was done. So maybe around 2020, but whatever, semantics. So then me and this guy, I just find out that he is the most driven, creative person. And like, I'm like, oh my God, this is my missing piece. I'm like, this is incredible. We literally become best friends. I turn him on to, He's never worked freelance. I turn him on to all my colleagues. Now he is a full-time videographer for the first time in his life.
Cool.
After a year of grinding his balls off, he approaches me with a whole business plan. He goes, look, I had to basically sell my soul to make this amount of money.
Yeah.
I want to work for only you for this amount, and I'll do all these things. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. I was like, fuck it.
Yeah.
You know, we're making good money. I'm like, this is a way for me to really invest in myself and the business, and like, you know, just looking more into like, you know, you find someone on YouTube with like 1 million subs, they make like 100,000 a month, you know? So when I hired him on, it was just like, holy shit, this is going to change my life. And we just started filming everything, putting out things multiple times a week, me just walking through homes, and also me showing our fuck ups and like, gosh, you know, we just tore into this wall, we hit this water line, we got to repair all this. So many builders will be like, I can't show that, no one will hire me. And it's like, dude, this is like, construction is crisis management. So like showing the real shit, right? Then it started happening. Random people, talent scouts were like, wow, I just found you on Instagram, I just found you on YouTube, like, this is incredible. Like, how are you not, you know, how are you not like famous? And I'm like, what? Like, these people, this is their literal job. They need to find a cash cow that they want to invest in, and they think that I'm good. I was like, oh my God. This is like all the doubts I had. I was like, damn, like I'm onto the right track. So I just tripled down. And we were talking to 2 different production companies. We actually filmed a pilot with one. It went all the way to the owner of the whole network. They asked us to film more stuff, and at the very end of the line, they just, you know, something happened and it didn't work out. But I was like, dude, I was one step away from having my own TV show. Straight up.
Crazy.
And I'm like,
crazy.
Yeah. And I'm just like,
you couldn't have planned that from the beginning. It's all about just action and just trying to get there and just trying to move forward and failing forward. Yeah.
And just like being true to yourself and just going for it, you know, and like something is going to come from it. It might not be, I feel like the TV thing is kind of crazy, but it's like, if you, let's say you got even a $50,000 job from a social media post, like you can't even calculate like the return on that. It's thousands of percent, right? Just like, even if you made $5,000 on like one thing, you're like, dude, it was worth it. You have social for a few months. You know what I mean? You could pay someone else to do something. Yeah.
Do you run paid ads at all, like Google ads or Facebook ads, social ads?
I do. I also have a full SEO team.
Okay.
So we're doing like tons of SEO for the website, and we're doing Google ads and like lots of other creative things just to like, you know, and we're kind of going after the big fish, and that's been a whole process. I pay probably, you know, $4,000 to $6,000 a month. And this has been going on for like a year. And again, it's like trusting the process. I'm like, it's so frustrating, but then you just see that you're trending up.
Yeah.
Even if it's fucking like this, and you're just barely making upward progress, you're doing something right. Like, find some sort of metric, whether it's how many likes you're getting, how many views you're getting. Like, you're like, whoa, like my exposure's going up. That's just like telling you that you're onto the right scent. And obviously, I'm nowhere near where I want to be. But what's so exciting is I am on the fucking path to being wherever I want to go.
Yeah. And you can look back at your history and know that you've gotten here from where you were, so you know you can get there from where you're at now.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's the cool part. So have you closed any jobs from your ads yet? Like, have you had a return on investment from that?
Yeah. And honestly, there, like, especially when we were focused on like more remodeling projects, tons of those came. Or like, what's funny is they'll see you a bunch in one place, and then like all they have to do is hear your name, like, oh, I saw you on Instagram, I've been following you for a while, but then my cousin's sister's brother told us that you're awesome, so we decided to call. And I'm like, see, this is where like all of this stuff, I feel like people will actually reach out to you maybe like the 5th or 6th time they hear about you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Well,
yeah,
I
it's
thought there was
super
that stat
interesting.
where they have to see your brand like 7 times before they actually pull the trigger or something like that.
Exactly.
So it makes sense. They're going to see an ad. They're going to see your video on YouTube. They're going to see something on Instagram. They're going to see your truck driving around or whatever it is. And all of a sudden they're going to be like, man, I got to hire this company. Like I see them everywhere. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's even funnier? It's like okay, now listen to this. The modern Victorian, right?
Yep.
If we're jumping around, if that doesn't fit into the narrative
No.
now.
Yeah. No. Explain it real quick. Yeah.
Okay, so this is where things have like really, really skyrocketed, right?
Okay.
So basically, I had this dream to build a Victorian style home with all the modern technologies, design elements, and amenities. And which so many people told me, like, dude, you're fucking crazy. Like, no one has done anything like this. But because I did that and I followed through with it, because everyone's doing the same shit, my shit exploded. I mean, I probably went from like 8,000 followers to like over 30,000 now, right?
Crazy.
Millions of views, over 20 million views on Instagram alone. So now I have landed the biggest job of my entire career from a guy that followed me when I started the Modern Victorian. He toured it and he said, this is the most well-built house I've ever seen. He's a multimillionaire, and now we're becoming best friends, and he is investing with me on, we're going to build a $10 million spec. Because he was just like, I know who you are. I've followed you on social media. Like, and the craziest thing is, like, some of the goofiest shit I do. Like, I am a crude person. I'm extremely nice. I'm loyal, but like, I'm not some like, I have perfect veneers and I never make mistakes. It's like, I'm a real fucking guy. So many people will be like, I found you on YouTube and you just seem like a real person. So I wanted to give you a call. And I'm just like, oh my God. Right? So now all of this stuff is built up to where the Modern Victorian was like my fucking like trophy house. Look at what I can do. It sold for $3 million. I opened it up. So many people make them like exclusive. I opened it up. I gave a free invitation to all my followers, any realtor. I swear to God, I gave personal tours probably 300 times to different people. Now, when I meet people at different business functions, they'll introduce me as the builder of the Modern Victorian. People go, oh my God, that's you? And I'm like, motherfucker, that is badass.
Man, that's crazy.
You know?
Yeah, that's wild. It's wild what can come from. These people probably feel like they're meeting a celebrity too. They feel like they know everything about you, which is just crazy.
It's a bit funny because some people like they'll be like, oh, like I didn't know, you know, the movie stars gracing our presence. I'm like, come on, shut up, you know, because I'm like, you know, there's people with millions and millions of followers, but
sure.
I think it's just such a cool thing that, like you said, people have gotten to know me online before they've met me in person. So it's like I'm having these warm welcomes of like people wanting my business, companies reaching out, like, you know, discounts are coming in, like incentives. Like, it is just such an amazing thing that you're like, dude, all of this work I've done is like a wave of, you know, like warm greetings and marketing and like everything I want to tell people. I don't even need to give them an elevator pitch because they pretty much know me.
Yeah, they're already sold. Yeah. You feel like all this, John, it stems from you just getting on camera? You feel like that's kind of like the catalyst of all this?
1,000%.
Like doing good work? Yeah. I feel like, yeah, go ahead.
Well, here's the thing. You can be doing really cool stuff and really amazing stuff, but it's like, dude, you know, if a tree falls in the woods, doesn't make a sound. Like, you know, it's so hard because you can't like bring these things with you. Like, you can't bring a house with you. The only way is showing someone in person. When someone moves into it, that's pretty much out the window. You got to pay, dude, I pay a shit ton. I'm talking like, you know, probably up to $6,000 just for our photos of every project. Like, you have to memorialize your work. You also have to get out of the mind frame of like being a narcissist. Like, people feel like if I'm bragging on myself then I'm just like a douche and no one wants to hear someone full of themselves. It's like, no, bro. Like,
Yeah.
you're just like, hey, I believe in what I do. I want to share it with the world. And,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
confident, but not cocky. I never dismiss a person. If someone
Yeah.
is someone has, I'm of the frame of mind, if I meet someone, there's something I can learn from them. And every single person is insightful. And it's like, just frame it in that way, and all of these positive reactions are going to be like raising the tide of your whole career.
Yeah. Yeah. Geez, I'm getting goosebumps from this just because there's so much value here, and I think it could change so many people's lives, like builders, but just everyday like business owners, and then just people in relationships, like just like talking and like hanging out with like normal. It's just like all about just like giving back to people and loving people and being genuine. There's so much here, dude. There's so much here. I want to jump to family stuff if you don't mind for a little bit.
Go ahead.
I work from the house. I've got 4 kids. I'm a huge family person. You've got what? 3 kids? 2 kids?
I have 2 kids.
You have 2 kids. Are you guys done?
I mean, dude, it's brutal, man. It's so,
Yeah.
that's like the hardest thing ever. It's the most gratifying, but I don't know. I really would love to like feel what it's like to have a boy. Just because of that father-son relationship that I kind of got robbed of and all that stuff. Obviously my girls are like, the thing I needed most in the world. I'm so fortunate to have them and my wife. I met my wife in 8th grade, so like another
crazy,
really, really crazy situation there. That's a whole topic in itself. But I don't know, man. It's just like it's really tough balancing all that. I work from home too. It's tough. But I will say this: it is one of the most like quick things that just snapped my life into shape. Like once I had a child, I was like, holy shit, this being depends on me. And I was able to cut away, I talk about all those relationships. What comes with that is leeches, anchors, people that like, they're drainers, they're not gainers. So what was so amazing, because I love everyone, it's so hard for me to say no and not give my time and like, a big reason of why I have a big circle. But once I had a baby, I just simply didn't have the time, and I shed off so much of the relationships that weren't like building me up, and my career was just like streamlined, man. It was like, that's what I tell people. I'm like, look, it's terrifying. You're going to have a lot of sleepless nights, but you're also going to realize that you are the most focused you've ever been. And like that was
because you have to be out of sheer necessity. Yeah.
And think about it. I had a 6-month-old when I started Revent.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, like I have no option but to make this work.
I've got to do it. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes that's what you need. Hey, John, how do you feel like your dad passing away at a really young age has affected you as a dad to your girls now? Do you feel like you think about that a lot? Are there are there moments where you're like, I wonder why I'm acting like this. I wonder if it's because, my dad, the way that things happened, or in a positive or in a negative way.
Yeah. And absolutely. Because I stop and think like, my dad died at 30. I'm 33. I'm literally older than my dad. And that's like, once that happened, I was like, damn, like this means I literally have no example of what it's like to be a father or to be a man of this age. Like, and I've been figuring out stuff from a way younger age, but I was like, what's amazing is I get to write like my book on like how I want to be perceived by my children, like the lessons I want to give them, like just even being here, is so incredible. Like, and that's why I try not to like, we're like super lax, like don't really like, we don't yell at our kids. We don't really punish them. Like I let them like explore everything. Like, and what else is cool is I almost had Arrested Development because I had to grow up so young. So like the joy that I find of reliving childhood moments, like I'm showing my daughter scary movies that my dad and I watched when I was a kid. Like I'm doing these things that now I'm in such a more stable place that like I can actually enjoy them. And then like, it's almost like like petting my inner child, like
Yeah,
nurturing
yeah.
my inner child, which I think is like just such a fulfilling experience.
I always think about the correlation between when you're a kid and like when you're a father, how there's so many things that like kind of overlap. And I think about, for me, all I really want in life is for my kids to be really successful. Like, I feel like if I just boil it down a lot, like if every one of my boys just crushed it and they did the thing that they're passionate about and they did it at a really high level, I'd be so happy. I'd just be like, I did it. I did it as a parent. Like I made it, And I look at you and at, everything with your dad. And I'm sure when your dad broke his neck, that was probably really devastating. And then obviously when he's like getting close to his deathbed and he's like, this is probably it. He probably feels like, shoot, man, I didn't get to send John off in the way that I wanted to.
I know, man.
But I know if he was looking, if you were to talk to him right now, he would just be so proud to be like, man, not only did I encourage him, because like the moments were like, run through the fence and you can go play with those guys. Like there's so many small moments like that probably shaped who you are. And then the very fact that he passed away and you're like, man, I'm not going to let fear get in my way because I'm okay. Like I've made it. I'm sure your dad would be like, man, I did my job with John. Like I helped put John in the position where he's at now. And I think it gives me goosebumps. I just think about my kids and I'm like, I would love to give that to them. And your dad gave that to you. And that's just cool. So your dad succeeded and he would be so proud of you, man.
Dude, that is so, thank you so much for saying that. And I believe that too. And there's a lot of things that I have a little guilt about, like, because there was a time where like grieving my dad didn't serve me. I was just like, I need to compartmentalize this. So I felt like I almost forgot him a little bit. But now that I'm older and I have a stable family and I have I wouldn't call it stable. Being an entrepreneur is insane, but I have all my needs met. I'm like,
sure.
I'm starting to dive much more into those feelings and like remembering him. And that's, I just recently got this tattoo and I'm like,
that's awesome.
I want to always remember my dad. Like he's with me at all times right there. I think the biggest thing for me, like I so appreciate everything you said. I believe it, but I never got to know my father as a man. We never got to like be peers as adults. Like I would just, I'm so interested like to know who he really was, And that's just something that I'll never truly find out. Right. So I just have to kind of just try to be the best version of myself for my children. Right. And I believe, we crush it as parents. Like I absolutely love how we parent and like how present we are in our kids' lives. I will say this as a final thing for all the parents out there, especially if you're an entrepreneur, being around and being present for your children are two very different things. I will admit I have a lot of trouble turning it off. My phone is always going, and I'm like, I'm providing for this family, but then like my wife is so the opposite of me. Like she is such a fucking star parent and a role model, and like I follow her lead, everything parent related, household related, and like she's like, I love and appreciate all you do for our family and how successful we are and the things we can have, but like what your daughters need from you is you. And I was like, oh my God, like it's that simple. Like, Daddy, watch me. And I'm like, I'm just focused and watching. I'm like, dude, I'm like welling up. Like, because to me, that's the biggest trade-off is like, you have to grind. You have to like push so hard. And like, if you're going to be successful, you have to be so obsessed with it. But like finding that balance of turning that off and being in that moment, it's so much easier said than done. I'm still finding a balance in that.
Yeah, dude, that's the hardest thing I think about being a parent, and just also just living in the world of social media and just like having a phone that's always on your hip. For me, the biggest thing is like 5 o'clock hits I take off my watch, my Apple Watch. My phone stays in the office, and I leave it. I leave it all from 5 o'clock until 8 o'clock. And sometimes I'll come in here and just check on things, make sure there's no fires. But I feel like that's been so helpful. And the days that I don't do that, because I'm not perfect, there's days where I walk out with all this stuff. I'm always on Instagram, or I'm like looking at something, or I'm taking a phone call, and like my kids are like playing, and I'll see like a video of me, like my wife will just have like random videos, and I'll be like on my phone, and like my kid will be talking to me, and I'm just like, oh, I hate the way that looks. I just hate it. I hate it. So it's like this gut wrenching thing.
God, I can relate to that so much, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's even though that's not a representation of how you are all the time. Imagine like watching home videos and how that comes off. It looks like it looks like you don't care about your child as much as what's going on in your phone. But that's obviously not the case, but it's just like, God, man.
The optics. Yeah.
Dude, I totally relate to that.
Yeah, it's scary. John, this has been an incredible conversation, man. I appreciate every minute you've given me today. Let's stay in contact for sure. I'm excited for you. I think everything that you're doing is absolutely epic. I remember the first time I saw your video, I'm like, dude, this guy's going somewhere. Like he just like randomly popped up on my Explore page, and I'm like, he's comfortable on the camera. He's doing some like really cool stuff. Your homes are beautiful, and
thank you.
So yeah, I'm excited for you, man. You're going places. So cool. Well, dude, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, and I want to thank you, and honestly, I want to commend you for taking the leap, and I want us to keep in touch. Like, let's go out and get some food and drinks and like keep up.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear about all the different things you offer and how it might be beneficial to me, man. But most of all, just thank you for believing in me and having me on the show. I really appreciate it.